Audio Jungle.
Happy Thursday, everyone. Welcome to the weekly B3L Market and Crypto Pulse. We have all three founders of B3L here today, Furloco, Borchilla, and myself, Danksy. We have 2 Degrees Rotes for the Market Pulse and Crypto Analysis. Our special guest today is Quirkies NFT and another special guest, JPEG Poppy. How are you doing, Furloco? How's your Thursday going?
Hey, Danksy, everything is well. And we are super excited to kick off the show. We are extremely excited to have Centribos, the founder of Quirkies, as well as the community and the special speakers today on the panel. So without further delay, the first 30 minutes of the show, we're going to be covering all things NFT and crypto market. And the latest part of the show will be bringing in Quirkies and the team to discuss what's going on with the project and the next things on the roadmap. So without further delay, I want to pass the mic on to my co-founder, Borchilla. How are you doing today?
Pretty good for a loco, Dansky. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. Happy Thursday. It's crazy the week, and October's kind of flying by, and super pumped to have our colleagues and friends at Quirkies and Pappy and Sin and the whole team. It's a great honor to finally do a collaboration event with you guys. So let's chat a little bit, and as we normally do, we'll I'll provide a little bit of kind of my perspective of what I see happening out there. And again, for those of you who kind of join us on the weekly spaces, I try to provide a little bit of a macro backdrop, recognizing that risk assets and flows will ultimately kind of drive to some extent kind of macro themes around crypto and then more specifically NFTs as you go farther down the risk spectrum. And as we've been talking about for several weeks and months now, the environment that we find ourselves in, as we think about crypto and NFT and kind of Web3 broadly, is kind of a liquidity driven, risk off kind of environment, largely driven by dislocations from inflation and higher interest rates and kind of the central bank actions around the world to drain liquidity. And so, unfortunately, not a lot of those themes have changed a whole lot. I think, if anything, if you recall, we've been kind of sharing perspectives where we don't try to predict necessarily where the world's going to go. What we try to do is be, good students of history and understand, kind of both technicals, momentum, sentiment, and clearly fundamentals to kind of guide our investment thesis and kind of entries and exits. And for weeks now, we've been talking about kind of the turmoil in the bond market and how typically equities and bonds are kind of inversely correlated, at least as it relates to government bonds, as a flight to safety. So when you find unease in the world, you'll find central banks and government securities, government treasuries being a safety trade. For the first time in certainly my entire life, and probably for multiple generations, we're seeing both kind of the safety of bonds, both corporate and sovereign bonds, treasuries as well as equities, all go risk off, and along with crypto and NFTs and every other asset class from real estate to even now commodities. And what that's essentially done is, as 2 Degrees will talk about, is it's driven a flight to safety in the U.S. dollar, which has a whole set of kind of derivative implications. But so where are we at today? Look, I think we've been saying that we feel like there's probably some type of bottoming process that we're approaching. Certainly crypto led the leg down early in the year. That was followed by U.S. And global equities, and it was kind of further cascaded with with the bond market. And if you look at bond market volatility as measured by the MOVE versus the VIX, which is for equities, you've seen like literally multi-decade volatility in the 70-80 percentile range versus the VIX around 30. So what that tells us is that there's still a lot of nervousness. There's still one more kind of leg to drop, if you will, as it relates to the bond market and interest rates. And if you look at kind of the most recent, Fed plots, they continue to ratchet higher. I think people are looking at a terminal rate around 4.25, 4.5 on Fed funds. Now that has been pushed up to almost 5% by March. So that's why you're continuing to see, bonds and all asset classes essentially sell off, which is putting pressure, on blue chip cryptos like Ethereum and Bitcoin. So where we're at today, I still feel like, we're probably in the sixth, seventh, maybe even the eighth inning of kind of what this downturn means. There will be violent bounces, as we saw early in this week. In a matter of 2 trading sessions, we saw the Nasdaq rebound 6-7% along with the S&P, and crypto caught a bid. BTC and ETH also caught a bid, but look, I think you got to stay a little still defensive here. I still think there's a crescendo kind of blow off decline. I mean, there's obviously taper risk with Russia, Ukraine, and kind of all the military drills that are going on. The Bank of England and everything that's going on with Liz Truss in the UK is still pressuring gilts and British interest rates and the EU complex broadly. The energy problems and the challenges, obviously, you heard Biden yesterday in the U.S. talk about, how he'd like to refill the SPR at 65 or 70 bucks, and he's calling on oil companies to share some profit, which is quite strange because he wants them to make lots of investments and then simultaneously asking for lower prices, which sounds like socialism to me. But anyway, so anyway, where we're at is I think we're pretty close here. We got midterm elections coming up in the 10th of November here, so you've got a little bit of a window where you're going to get some nasty volatility between October, which is seasonally a difficult month, and probably the first week or 10 days of November. So I think you got to be a little cautious, over the next 5 to 10 trading sessions, and then I think you set up for good seasonality into the back half of the year. And I think, again, from a leading indicator perspective, I would expect to see, and we're already starting to see some of the risk assets. You have, a very positive Netflix reaction to its earnings on the ad-supported business. I think you're going to continue to see, selective tech continue to outperform, which is great because what that means is that the risk appetite is returning to the market. And you're going to see that with more relative strength in crypto assets broadly as well. So again, I think that's the theme, that's the playbook to look at. Obviously, Rotes and 2 Degrees are going to talk a little bit more, about the specifics around the NFT and the crypto market. But again, with that backdrop, that gives you a little bit of either wind at your back or wind in your face if you're thinking about putting on longer short trades. So that's kind of what I wanted to share, and happy to take a question or two if anyone's got anything they want to chat about. Otherwise, I'll hand it back to you guys to continue to do the double click and dive deeper.
Appreciate it, Borchila. We always enjoy your wonderful recap of the macro and how that affects crypto. I'm sure 2 Degrees and Rhodes have many questions, but I wanted to pass it on to 2 Degrees and see if he has any questions for you or what is he seeing on the markets today and what is he trading, is anything.
Yeah, what's up? What's up? Mic check, FG, mic check.
Yep, we hear you clear and loud.
All right, cool. I have a little different setup here today, so I got some. I'm back to the old fashioned pencil and paper. I got eraser ashes all over the desk. Borchilla said it really well. I'm not gonna take too much time, but I'm going to do it a little different here. I want to stay. I want to piggyback Borchilla, and I want to point out, Rotes DB and I, Rotes is a data killer, and IO Focus as well. We've been working on some stuff. To be perfectly honest, we've been putting some serious hours into some of this data that we're looking at, and today I want to switch it up. And I just want to focus on specifically the S&P and the past bear markets of the S&P, and specifically the past long bear markets. So what Rotes and IO Focus and I are working on, we're correlating a specific technical indicator, and we're looking at correlating with the Fed fund rate, 10-year bond yields, the S&P, the Dixie, U.S. existing home sales, and we're throwing all this together. And then we're specifically looking at the S&P 500 long bear markets. And those one thing that all the S&P 500 long bear markets had in common was the weekly 2100 EMA bear cross. And as we look at this data and we break down the data and the technicals, since 1929, the average bear market in the S&P has taken 318 days to reach peak to trough. All right, 318 days average back to 1929. Now, if we take a closer look at the long bear markets, the long drops, that's what Roach, IO Focus, and I are focusing on. Those bear markets that took well over that average of 318 days, we notice a similarity. And that one similarity is that historic S&P weekly 2100 EMA bear crossover. All the data that we look at, we're in an unprecedented bear market. When you see this data and you see these charts, you're gonna be like, holy shit, what's going on? It's unprecedented. We're in unprecedented times, historic times. But the one commonality is in these long bear markets that took over the average of 318 days is the historic S&P weekly 2100 EMA bear cross. If we look at 2007, the Great Recession, that took 355 days and a 57% drop. If we look at the 2000 dot-com bubble, that took 637 days and a 49% drop. If we look at Volcker's Bear, 1982, 430 days and a 27% drop. The 1973 recession took 436 days and a 48% drop. And the 1968 bear market took 369 days and a 36% drop. As we sit today, currently in 2022, in this bear market, the S&P is at 196 days and a negative 25%. So one thing that exists in all of these long bears is that weekly S&P 2100 EMA bear crossover. So if we take the long bear markets and we get the average days of those long bear markets from top to bottom, we got an average of 445 days. Now, those are the long bears in the S&P. They all had that historic weekly crossover. We currently sit at 196 days. So I think Board Chill is on the right track. I think the way he says it sounds so good, but I want to say it a little different. It's absolutely plausible that we could still be in store for another long bear market extending well into 2023. That's what the data shows me. So we have to trade accordingly. We have to be risk off. At least I do, not financial advice. Do your own research. I have cash on the sidelines. I have stable on the sidelines. I've been banging the table for damn near a year, maybe even more. And I've been saying the same thing, repeating the same thing, throwing out different data, different sets. So just be careful, do what you do, and let's see where this goes.
Hey, that's spot on, 2 degrees. Hey, just want to add a little color commentary to what you said. So 100% agree. We could be in a more protracted, another 6 months or 8 months. What you'll even find in those mid to long range bear cycles is you'll get a very violent, even in some cases, triple Qs or S&P or Dow bounce between 30 to 40% from cycle lows. So we could still be setting ourselves up for kind of a counter trend rally that could put a lot of A, could be quite profitable, but B, being short position could be very painful. The one thing that I would tell you in the analogs, and there's a lot of analogs, the 73s, the 29, the 30s. There's so many kind of correlation patterns. The one thing that's fundamentally unique about this one, as opposed to any of these past ones, is this entire rate cycle and the correlation between Treasury, interest rates and yields, which is again a derivative of inflation, and the stock market and risk assets like crypto. is those are highly correlated, like a 0.9% correlation this year. It's which is pretty crazy. And so if you're going to get this continued bear, then essentially you're also painting a point for continued inflation, continued elevated interest rates. And here's the one big risk, and we've talked about this in prior calls. The world, the amount of notional debt that central governments have placed in the world, in the U.S. it's $31 trillion. If you add up kind of global central bank, kind of exposure to, and the impact, the cost of servicing that debt with these higher rates, it's unfathomable, right? Which is the whole reason, Satoshi and the whole spirit around what decentralized, independent kind of blockchain based, deflationary, cryptocurrencies thesis is all about, is to avoid this, kind of rampant, violent printing of money unchecked by governments. And so what my point here is that, you can't continue to have interest rates continue to rise too much more, because too much of the national budget from taxation in both the US and EU and various other industrialized countries is just going to go straight into debt service. And that is not a recipe for just a run-of-the-mill recession. That is a global depressionary collapse. So I don't think the world is going to go to Armageddon. I don't think if there's a nuclear war, well then hell, it all doesn't matter anyway. But I think what has to happen is the amount of wealth destruction, the amount of balance sheet destruction on both individuals and businesses is going to be so dramatic, given the level of interest rates and given the amount of debt in today's economy versus those in the past, that you're probably not going to get to those kind of extreme conditions we saw in the 30s and even the 70s with 50% drawdowns on the S&P. So anyway, I just share that kind of backdrop. It is a unique lens, and that's what makes these calls unique and special, is we don't just focus on one dimensional analysis, which is either technical or momentum or sentiment driven. We try to provide a very well balanced kind of lens here. So I'm going to flip back to you guys.
I love it. Thank you, Bertilla. And it looks like we have some good news on the crypto side. As Fidelity has to or suggests to, Ether being a non-security status. So I think they announced to launch an Ether trading for institutional clients by the end of the month, which is it's a good sign after all we've heard about Yuga Labs and ApeCoin being a security label. Also, the IRS has given new tax guidelines for NFT investors, saying that all digital assets, including stablecoins or NFTs, are set to be taxed under the same rules. So we'll see how this affects the industries. But I guess those are positive news for today. And I wanted to switch gears a little bit. I know that Sin has limited time today. I want to be respectful of that. So let's switch gears to NFTs, and I'm going to pass the mic to Rhodes TV to take it on.
Thank you. Excellent overview, Borchella and 2 Degrees, and thanks 2 Degrees. I really enjoyed working on the economic data that we processed, and really eye-opening to see some of the trends that we saw. Next, I want to say welcome to family and friends, Sin and the Quirkies and JPEG Poppy, and I see Ash and a lot of familiar faces down there. It's great to come full circle. I spent a lot of my time early days in the Quirkies family and environment, and listening and cutting my teeth in the NFT space. Now I spend a lot of time looking at data and trying to consume the market and understand the market and process information, and we look at the overall economics, and sure, there's a lot of uncertainty and possibly more downside. And crypto, has its trends and bearings. NFTs have never gone through a bear cycle, and so where we have to define on what's going on is again, there's bright spots. There's teams that are building. You look at something like the unique partnership Deadfellas has with the NFL and DraftKings, and obviously Quirkies and Deadfellas work together, and things like that. But teams are still out there building. You see the interesting factors that are go on with Magic Eden and the disruption that's going on with Solana and creator royalties and things like that that hasn't hit ETH to that degree outside of X2Y2. And then, you have the emergence of something like Blur.io, which I think is interesting timing and maybe perfect for the space in bringing together multiple platforms and a way similar to what Gem did, but maybe in a more proficient way to aggregate marketplaces and the maybe the ahead of its time scenario where Quirkies had their own marketplace well in advance. And there's challenges with that, but when you have an outstanding aggregator like Blur that might be able to bring in even more platforms, that could be valuable to the space and hopefully allow for marketplaces to stand and maybe diversify, but also it all comes down to where people shopping and spending time. So, really interesting stuff going on there. Obviously, that makes my job harder in the terms of trying to measure what the volume and activity is. So, we look at ETH volume and USD volume, and that's down slightly week over week. Again, last week had that low dip because of a lack of mints. We've rebounded since then, but then yesterday and with Blur, and of course, if you're not familiar with Blur, hit up Twitter, you'll see it. If you've been trading NFTs, there will be airdrops that are available. Those airdrops won't be available until January, so they're well out, but you have 14 days to claim. So, if we look back to what we saw with Looks Rare, there's some value in there. So, possibly something there for you that way. If we look at NFT volume, we see the usual projects leading the way: BAYC, Azuki, Mutants, other side, CryptoPunks. And then we see a couple newer, and this is looking at the 7-day, but Nilings called out by IO Focus in B3L early on. And the interest part of that is the clean, cute art. And it seems to capture some attention. Gives me a little bit of throwback to things like possibly something like Dower Darcells in the terms of aesthetics and slightly 3D, but then more so in the terms of the cute art and really distinct, recognizable. So that's seen its run and it's continued post IO Focus's move, and we look for that kind of volume. And a lot of the easier wins have happened with newer projects. But then there's, like I said, there's still the back end builders where we see volume and activity from there. And I'm keeping mindful to keep this kind of short here because I'm very happy to hear from our special guests. Mintify raises 1.6 million to work on the best trading platform. And now that's the interesting part as well, is that there's so many trading platforms out there that it's diluting the market. I always go back to NFT Go as being ideal because it's free and it gives you such excellent information. We've had Beanie rejoining the space and the drama that surrounds that. We'll let that play out. We won't continue on that. And then new projects, Nilings crushing it in the terms of volume activity. UG Yin, as we mentioned last week, continued to move and see volume and activity. And then we have the Gangster All Stars with their reveal. We indicated before that their reveal mechanism for projects that it was effective with Gangster All Stars. I don't know if it's going as smoothly or as effective. There's a bit of a post reveal dip, and it'll be interesting to see how that mechanic of using the box is working. But their reveal is ongoing. And then Genuine Undead is seeing a bit of activity, and as our friends Killer Bears as well, with a good run in the last week. And then today we have our mint of the day is Degenheim. It's a gaming project that has a genesis of 2 ETH floor. There's a lot of volume and activity on that project, minted out at 0.08. Currently trading, I believe, at 0.19 as a last check. So one to look at. Again, we like to look, or I personally like to look at a 2 to 3 week range just to see how projects establish themselves after the initial volume hype. So that is my rundown of the market. We'll pass it on from there.
Yeah, thank you, Rhodes. Very helpful to understand what's going on in the NFT world. I know we have a couple of minutes left before we bring on Sin and the team. So I wanted to pass the mic on to IO Focus. If you have anything to add to what Rhodes or 2 Degrees and Borchila said, otherwise we can move on.
Hi, yeah, thanks. I listening a lot, learning a lot. Been following some of the projects Roach was just talking about. The Dijonheim has been pretty interesting, especially what they've been able to do with the Genesis collection. Yeah, and the next kind of mint I'm looking forward to coming up is this Talkins AI, which is another VC backed by Morningstar collection. It's going to launch here towards the end of the month. Something I'd keep an eye on, and just protect the capital.
There you go. Yeah, I know. I don't know if you heard about the news over the weekend about that South Carolina house being sold as an NFT for about 175,000 USDC. That's pretty cool to see. I hope there's more real estate and Web3 integration in the near future. So, without further ado, I wanted to do a quick room reset and invite people to speak, especially the Quirkies community. Thank you guys for joining us today. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the B3L Weekly Spaces. We do this show every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, and where we talk about, as you have heard, anything NFTs, crypto markets, as well as we bring on great speakers. Today, we are super excited to have the Quirkies community and its founder, Sin Tribos. I know it's quite early over there in Australia. I believe it's 6:30 a.m. in the morning. So, appreciate you waking up early and coming into the show. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you, and thank you for that rundown as well. It's an interesting space, and I mean, from an Australian perspective, a lot of what's said is replicated. I think we're probably closer to the end of what we're seeing economically. Interest rates, from our perspective, are starting to sort of hit the top and peak, which is going to make an interesting sort of scenario if the US keep pushing ahead with it. Suddenly it's a lot more expensive for us to travel to the US. I think our dollar's at 60 cents now. So that's a bit of a punish when we're trying to book holidays to the US. But other than that, going well. And just quickly on Blur as well, it's really interesting to see the hype around an aggregator. I think from my perspective and I think the broader market, what is actually going to shift in allowing an aggregator to come in and be successful is when the broader NFT market starts to value the aggregated volume of a project, because at the moment, realistically, everyone just checks OpenSea, and that's the volume, and that's all that matters, right? So I think it was Rotes that mentioned we had a marketplace, and we were one of the first to bring it to the table. I think Chimpers were probably the first to do it in a meaningful way. And looking back on it now, was it the right thing to do? Probably not, because the fact of the matter is we were trying to take away cost of the community to trade, but the fact of the matter is to bring in new people to the community, everyone's looking at OpenSea to see an active project, and really, like it's best for a project for as much volume to go through OpenSea as possible at the moment. So until that fundamental shift happens where the broader community and the broader NFT investment community are looking at an aggregated performance and aggregated volume, it's going to be really hard to really make these things a success. So it'll be interesting to see now that it's been done in a more trading centric way, how Blur comes about it. I know they just came out and said Beanie invested in them, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But other than that, I'm good. It's good to see some movement with projects as well, some new projects, and we keep on keeping on to ensure that we maintain a reasonably strong floor in a tough market, and hopefully in coming weeks with more activations and announcements, we'll be able to see some volume kicking up as well.
Love it. Yes, awesome. Listen, many people in the audience, especially the Quirkies community, shout out to you guys. Know that your project, Quirkies, has been what you guys have accomplished so far, right? So, but for many of those that don't know, we're very excited to have you here today and hear more about your story. And many for those of you in the speaker panel, feel free to jump in, raise your hand, or even speak. There's no order here. Whatever is needed, please raise your hand. I wanted to first start with a question, I guess, addressed to you, Sin. I guess the question is, who is Sin Triple Stable, and how did you get started on your Web3 and NFT journey?
Yeah, people. I mean, I know the Quirkies probably hearing a broken record, but it's good to sort of go over it, because it's initially for me. So I traveled to the States. I'll start at the very beginning. So back, and it's more about people you meet along the journey, right? It was I met a group of college students when I was younger, a lot younger, and out of Texas, it was Austin, and it was the back end of 2020. One of them messaged me knowing that I own racehorses and have always had an interest in horse racing. And one of them messaged me and said, "Look, this is blowing up on campus. It's a digital NFT game." I'm thinking, okay, well, I've invested in crypto. I was very lucky to get into Bitcoin very early, but that's really where it stayed for me. I wasn't really part of the blow up and the big surge of bull market for altcoins, etc. prior to that. But got introduced obviously to Zed Run through this article. Immediately got on the phone once I read more about it to the founders, and I actually offered to raise them money. So my background from a business standpoint is corporate finance, and really trying to get private companies to market has been what I've sort of worked on for the past 10 years prior to focusing on Web3. Was really lucky through the fintech boom and buy now, pay later boom that we saw in Australia, and not as to a bigger extent in the US. We were lucky to get a few big private companies to market, and we're really successful with that, which made it easy for me to focus on other parts of Web3. And anyway, I spent a lot of time in Zed Run and did a lot of content. I really saw a big future in that. And what I did see is the inability for a business to shift quickly in Web3 can be a complete death notice, really. And unfortunately, that's what we saw with Zed. Zed has launched, I think it launched in 2019. It peaked probably June 2021, and it was just I think a lack of understanding and listening to the community which hurt them, and it was frustrating from my perspective, because I was lucky to have a really strong following with Zed. I was literally lucky enough to purchase some really good horses out of a couple of their mints, which allowed me to then gain a really strong following. And their inability to take on feedback and shift was what actually made me move out of the business, and really as a content creator. So we saw a lot of communities shift then to the PFP side of things. Obviously, Bored Apes came out. It was April of 2021, and that sort of ramped up. And a lot of people then shifted over to the PFP space. And initially, if I'm honest, I didn't see the value. I thought, I've got these digital horses which I can completely understand, and I can. My thesis, well, my thought behind it was, can I sell this to an institution? Right? Can I make sense of a digital horse that's actually bringing in income? Yes. Can I then make sense of a cartoon ape, which is going at this point for $5,000 US? And initially, I didn't give it enough thought, and then I got to the stage where I saw so many people on Twitter just absolutely hyping each other up. People with 20 followers bought an ape, suddenly they had 1,000. And I was thinking, well, from a community standpoint, I'm seeing this start to build. And I spoke to a friend I speak to a lot, with a lot of high risk players in private markets, and he said we actually grew up together playing RuneScape, and I've mentioned this before, and he said, mate, like, remember the value that we used to place on party hats in a game which had absolutely no relevance to in real world trading, although it did. And I thought, well, if that makes sense in the real world, where you're suddenly being able to trade it even like easily and openly in terms of fiat, then I can completely see suddenly the value proposition of, rather than hanging a Picasso in your vault or in your house at home, the value of being able to share that wealth. And I know that a lot of people like to be able to share wealth, right? They like to be able to show it off, and it started to make a lot more sense around the PFP side of the market. And then I bought a couple of apes and was lucky enough to ride that wave. And eventually, it got to the point where I was speaking to a number of people out of Z, and thought that, there's an opportunity here to build a business with a community that is going to be able to push you and provide support in the early days. So it's really been a journey for me to be able to go, well, let's sort of flip the way that a business is usually built, where you're going into product development and working out what's actually going to work, and find out from the market, where you're actually starting with a community first and building the brand on top of it. So for me, building businesses has been my life for the past 10 years. So from that aspect, it's no different. It's certainly just the way and the speed of which it needs to be done in Web3 which has changed, and you immediately have stakeholders, which are your holders to report to, which, in a private business, generally you're not having to focus on that. But it's been a whirlwind journey, and look, I'm so glad that I got that message from the college kids in Austin. Otherwise, to be honest, I would have missed the boat, and I know 100% I would have seen, a lot of hype around these cartoon apes, and I probably would have dismissed it. And that's the danger with a lot of new technology, is it's so easy to dismiss. And I think for anyone out there, you have to take the time to review this stuff and try and think about it holistically, because it's so easy to miss, life-changing opportunities.
Wonderful. No, I appreciate that amazing overview of your background. And I know we have 2 Degrees had a question, but I wanted to mention that you definitely have done a wonderful job, building a community of strongholders and, even project ambassadors, right? Like you have obviously JPEG Pappy here in the audience and as a speaker, Board Chilla, myself, FinTech Junkie, and Action Jacks, and many other B3L members as well. So kudos to you, and shout out to the team, because definitely have done wonderful things so far. But I wanna pass the mic on to 2 Degrees. What's going on, man?
Yeah, thanks, FG. Hey, Sin, I just wanna give you a shout out, man. I came over. I was really hesitant to come into the NFT space, and you actually got me into Zed Run, and that was my first experience with building a stable. And I don't watch many influencers, and I don't watch many videos, and I don't really follow many traders and stuff. But when I came into the NFT space, Zed Run, I had my eyes locked in on Zed Run, and I just knew it was gonna put in some work for me. And your content was just so easy to follow, quick. If you're, it was all based on Genesis. I was all focused on Genesis horses back in the day. And anyway, my question, I'm like I'm a fanboy, basically, is what it boils down to. Anyway, so my question for you would be, since you built that community, that Zed Run community, and you did very well. You had quite a good size following there on the Zed Run. You were doing pretty big things there. How did that community follow you into Quirkies? Did that give you like a head start? Did that give you a nice foundation to bring over, or did a lot of people just stay behind and stick with Zed Run?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. There was certainly a portion that stayed because they didn't share my view that I think, that Zed weren't probably the ones that were going to be ultimately successful. That is still up for debate, of course. They're still working hard, but they certainly didn't share my view that, profile picture art was going to be more than just a profile picture. Like I saw it as the way that you've essentially inversed what ZRun was, where they've showed utility initially and then we're building the community around it, where PFP NFTs were really doing the opposite, and they were building a community and then providing the utility, right? So there was certainly a portion that didn't follow through, but we had it. I was really lucky enough to have met a number of people through it that did follow and gave me a lot of support. And it looked like anything in life. If you've got a strong base, it's a lot easier to take that jump and make the decision to go out on your own, right? So and not only that, like Signline, who is on the Quirkies team, I actually met directly through Zed, and one of our devs as well early on, which we utilized was through Zed. So from a networking standpoint, it was fantastic, and there are a number of people that followed me within Zed that are still very large Quirky holders actually, and I think it certainly helped from a credibility standpoint, people watching me week in, week out on Zed, and I gave my reasons for why I left. It wasn't just I decided to stand up and leave for no reason. I was very clear and transparent about that. So yeah, it certainly in terms of minting out initially, it gave us a big head start, and having a solid foundation of people there that are willing to say, well, hang on a second, Sin's not new to the space. He's been here doing this for 6 to 8 months, which at the time was a very long time in the space. Certainly helped, and I think it also gave me a bit of credibility coming into NFTs, which is important because at the time, I think there was like for every decent project, every 10 projects, there were probably 7 rug pulls at the time. It was just so bad at the point in time that we minted. So it was helpful, and yeah, there's still certainly a lot of people within our community that can find their roots directly back to ZRun.
Wonderful. I don't know if that answers your question 2 degrees, but I imagine it does. So I guess the next question I have for you, Sin, is more related to outside of your professional background, right? It's related to the actual Quirkies and the art itself, right? And probably this is also a question for Finch one, but I wanted to ask you, outside of your professional life, it seems like you guys have a big love for surfing and skating and the culture around it. So how did the art creation come about and the inspiration behind it?
It's actually a funny one. I don't think I've mentioned it before, but I haven't told the full story, I don't think. So I can do that today. So only last night with Sign and Sleepy, who are on the team, I actually showed them the first iteration of Quirky's art, which I might release at one point. And it was with an artist out of Thailand, I believe. That was my first iteration. I had the vision of what I wanted was a universally liked that wasn't it wasn't going to completely cut out a demographic. I wanted it to be essentially gender neutral. Both women and men would like the art. It wouldn't be specific to a younger generation or an older generation. I wanted it to be as broad as possible without being weak in terms of the art. So that was what I was looking to do. And as I said, I went to an artist initially and came up with a few things, and it just wasn't going well. And again, actually through my relationship through Zed and through a couple of other projects is where I initially met Finch One. He did a bit of work for me with a couple of derivatives on apes early on, and I reached out to him from there. So again, it's just a little bit of a sidetrack, but I was thinking about this last night, and it's something that Web3 does very poorly is people are willing to burn bridges very, very quickly in this space. And I think it is partly because the speed of which it moves, but anyone that's tearing someone down or just completely rides people off, the space is far too new to be doing that, because the fact of the matter is, if you're looking to make a name for yourself in Web3, to to burn a bridge with someone that might be successful in any way, shape, or form is really detrimental to your brand and your network, right? Because I dealt with Finch for like 2 times. If I had have just completely, been a prick and decided not to talk to him again, then we've completely lost the amazing art that he's created. So building a network within Web3 and just being a decent human is so important in a space that's so early on, because you're going to meet so many people that you just never know how they may come back into your Web3 journey. And Finch is one that, as I said, I dealt with once, and he's come back in, and I gave him the same brief, and I think the first iteration that he came back with was essential. There was very, very few changes, and it was really important to me to include that streetwear, skating, surfing lifestyle, because I grew up surfing. Like I spent the first 18 years of, well, probably 21 years of my life in board shorts at the beach, before I spent the following 10 years in a suit and tie, which I'm starting to get out of now, which is fantastic. But we really wanted to build that culture, because I think it was something that no one in Web3 had really focused on at that point. Obviously, Bored Apes were more of a grunge culture, but they hadn't focused, I don't think, on the surfing and the skating lifestyle brand. And that's something that we continue to build out. And I think it's something that we can, and it's the buzzwords, I know, and people get sick of it, but it really does allow us to build 2 separate funnels and build a brand which it's really important to be able to push a brand without pushing just an NFT, right? Because people freak out straight away when they don't understand crypto, and like crypto is a big enough stepping stone anyway without going into NFTs, where if we can provide a culture brand which people resonate with, it's going to be a lot easier to then bring them across to the Web3 side from the Web2 business. Once they resonate with the brand, they trust the brand, it's going to be a lot easier to onboard. So one side of it really funnels the other, and it's important to us to stick to those roots and really build out that street surf side of it, because that's what we grew up doing.
Hey, Sid, real quick. This is Jill. I'm gonna have to hop here in a second, but again, I do want to echo something you just said, which quite frankly, it's sometimes groups get so caught up in competition and given where we're at in this space, and quite frankly, it's just a nascent community. And I think what's amazing is the mindset and kind of the approach that guys like yourself and Pappy and others, and even fintech. The great, just the sheer amount of kind of commentary, collaboration. It's really healthy to see. And again, I want to applaud the Quirkies community, both the core and kind of the extended group, because I think you're paving the way. You're setting the example of how we need to work together to achieve what the space can ultimately be. Yeah, PFPs can be flexes, and the brand and the IP monetization. There's so many dimensions to what this movement kind of represents. That's kind of what got me involved, and why I've continued to be a very strong proponent of Quirkies as a platform, as a brand, as a community, because I think you embody what leadership looks like. So again, hats off to you and everyone else here on the team. There's really a lot that is being defined, and it's important to keep that perspective. So thanks again.
No, I appreciate that, mate, and it's certainly a team effort from both the team side, but the community side. We've been really blessed with a number of really strong community members, which it is part of what is so hard to replicate a project in NFTs, right? You can have the best team out there, and if you don't strike it lucky in some aspect with the community that you get to establish early on, it makes it very difficult. We were really, really lucky, to the point that we're now, discussing with multiple community members how we actually either bring them on as advisors or on the team, because there is just so much expertise, right? So, we've been really, really lucky from that aspect. And I think from a community standpoint, it's one of the things that we haven't had to foster, because the community's done such an amazing job, and it's weeded out having such a strong community weeds out the ones that probably aren't here for the right reasons, right? So it's been a self-policing to a point where we've been able to focus on what we need to, which is fantastic.
Wonderful. Well, now that you mentioned that, I think it's a good time to ask you this. Obviously the art reveal was wonderful. Everyone loved it. But apart from that, you just mentioned the importance of community long term, right? To keep a project sustainable and growing organically as well. So I guess on your website, the Quirkies brand is very focused on community and culture. So what does this mean to you as a founder? And what is the key to building a super engaged and active community, as the Quirkies community is nowadays?
Yeah, so I mean, it all really started with spaces. I think Quirkies were probably one of the first projects to really ramp up spaces. We had obviously it was the peak of a bull market, so there was a lot more people around, but we were having daily spaces, and it was replicated by several other projects that saw the success that we were being able to gain, and the traction we're able to gain from Twitter and spaces. Like Discord really was never a driving force for us, other than the whitelist and the mint, right? As soon as that happened, it all moved over to Twitter, and I think we've seen that paradigm shift more and more in the bull market. Like Discords are generally pretty dead, and it's all happening on Twitter these days. And I think that partly because of security issues with Discord, but we were really able to focus on that early. And I tried my best to put myself out there as much as I could. I think that we saw a number of large projects where founders were sort of unreachable and in the background, which as a founder, without doubt, is a better way to do it from a founding perspective, because you can then cut out a lot of the noise. But I think that that luxury was really over in sort of 2021. I thought, and I still believe, that if you want to be competitive in the current landscape, where you're fighting to get into that sort of 5 ETH range, to be a real competitor to the top brands, that you have to be accessible. And that's why I get on Space every Saturday, and let people ask the questions. Like if they've got a problem, then I'm saying to you, get up on a Space and ask me the question, right? And if not, then maybe it's not for you if you're not willing to do that. So I think being as transparent as I possibly can. Obviously, in doing so, you cop a lot of flack because there's a lot of things you can't actually talk about. But I think for the people that are here for the art, for the building of the community, I think they do appreciate to see that the founder's still there and not running off and buying new houses with the mint money. So it's, to me, it was a driving force to make sure that I was there and representing the broader community. I think that did help initially, and gave a lot of people that otherwise probably would have moved on to other projects, because there was a very big flipping mentality at the time, where they sort of found a home. And then we were helped by a number of big buyers that came through. I know FinTech sitting in the audience, he's one, and then we had community members really step up. We had Ash, we had Puppy, we had a number of people come in and really step up from a community aspect as well, which is then blossomed into a great and a really strong community, which I think is going to be the most important factor going into the next market, right? Because you're going to have a whole lot of people that aren't willing to sell, and hopefully a whole new influx of people willing to buy. And supply and demand tells us that might be a beautiful thing coming into a new bull market.
Wonderful. I think you're 100% right. It's a completely different change from, I guess, for founders, right, to have to make that switch in between, just coming up with quarterly, updates, in Web2, right, for your shareholders or your members, to actually having to be active on a daily or weekly basis to report back, and that really has been the case within Web3, and you guys have definitely led that path. So I wanted to talk about something fun. I guess we'll have other questions coming up, including some of the future for Quirkies. But one of the things I wanted to talk about was Quirkies New York event in June, which was by the way, was a blast. Our B3L team was there, which I have to say it was one of the funnest events we attended to during that week. So I guess the question is, how long did it take you guys to plan this event? And I obviously think there were many hurdles in the process, but most importantly is, were you surprised with how many people showed up and the energy around you?
Yeah, now this is an interesting one. I'll probably have a controversial because I'm fighting with a couple of community members at the moment about events. So I'm looking at Ash. So the fact of the matter is, with these events at that point in time, I think it was really important to consolidate the community and bring people together. And it was a lot of work, to be honest, because I planned the thing essentially myself with some really great ideas from community members, but I had to work with the firm out of the US, and obviously doing that in a short period of time, finding a venue, because we minted in February, right? So at that point, you don't know whether you're going to be spending, significant money on a large event. Generally speaking, I think that big unsponsored events, which obviously at the time we didn't have the time to get it sponsored, so it was completely out of our back pocket, are not necessarily positive ROI investments. And I thought that it was important at the time to really consolidate the community, to make sure that people knew that, I was a real person, come out there, meet everyone. And I think it certainly helped with a number of people that were questioning, right? Well, who is actually behind it? Who's the team? We want to meet everyone. And it was great. And look, the event was fantastic. And it was important at the time to do it, without doubt. And it was a rush around, but I think I was really proud at how it turned out. And yeah, the turnout as well was significant. I think at last count I think we just cracked the 500 people through the door, which was insane for a time where we were really slipping into a bear market. I think the week before we actually hit the low of Ethereum at that period of time where it dipped below $1,000 and then I think it hit $800 the 2 nights before or something, which was fun watching that at the same time. So it was good that everyone was in still a really happy mode and really enjoying what we had created. But I think founders need to be cautious with spending a lot of money on these events consistently, because no one, as people were saying in the lead up to this, no one knows how long this market's going to be in the state that it is currently in. And as we've seen, the transactional volume has completely dried up, and it's really important to protect treasuries at the moment. Like, we're working on 4 different things where we're paying people to whether it's devs, whether it's marketing, whether it's PR, like we are spending money, and is spending a couple of $100,000 on an event which is unlikely to increase the turnover of a project or give you further opportunities to find another revenue stream. Like, you really got to start asking the hard questions about whether that's worth it or not. And you're going to cop flack. But at the end of the day, I put a post out the other day where, we had a couple of people just complaining about certain short-term metrics. And the fact of the matter is that if you're not around in a year, it doesn't matter what you do. There's very little point to it. So, my vision for this is to have a business and a company in 10 years' time, which is bringing in multiple revenue streams and creating significant value for the holders, right? So if that means sacrificing short-term events, then I think it's really important. But to be clear, it was amazing to see everyone in New York and walking around Times Square with merchandise. But it's one of those things that I think now the tougher decisions have to be made as a founder.
No, wonderful. And I want to touch on the treasury in a bit, as well as the vision, which I think you can already answer. But I brought on to stage Ashley. I know that. How are you doing today? I wanted to bring you in and I guess share your thoughts about the event or anything else you want to share with the community.
Yeah, definitely. First of all, hello and thank you. I actually have been learning a little bit more about Sin that I already didn't know. And geez, I know a lot. So this has been definitely good to listen to. As far as the NFT NYC event, I must say, and I went to a lot of events and met a lot of people that weekend, and I agree. The Quirkies event was one of the top events, if not the top event. And what I really loved about it was that it wasn't token gated. It was, welcoming to everyone. You didn't have to be a holder in order to enjoy, what we enjoyed. And so, yeah, Sin, I think that it was amazing what you did. And he's right. I am fighting him for several events. But, I think that eventually he'll get tired of me asking and maybe he'll cave in at one point in time.
Love it. I'm sure you will. I also brought in JPEG Pappy. I don't know if you have anything to share about. We're discussing currently the NYZ event for the Quirkies, which was a success, and we definitely enjoyed. But as we will move on, I don't know if you have anything to share right now. We have. I have a question for you, and it's regarding the sins, regarding the treasury, right? So you mentioned obviously you're being careful about treasury and how you manage it, as well as to maintain the project to be a sustainable one for the near future and for the long term future as well. So I guess, are you guys planning to launch any additional NFT collections, or are you looking into raising some venture capital money, or just for the short future, or that hasn't come across yet?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll answer it from a treasury standpoint. So we're in a really good position to be honest at the moment. We are still 90% exposed to Ethereum, which is probably the only thing that concerns me somewhat. But I think it's important to also have that exposure, because I am long term bullish that the Ethereum at the end of the day. So it's not, and our business is in Ethereum, right? So it's not completely speculation, but we are in a very good position from what we're still bringing in from a secondary sales perspective, and how much we have in the treasury. Like we do, for what we want to achieve in the midterm, we don't need to raise capital. And look, the last thing you want to be, and I've been on the other side of these conversations, is that you don't want to have to be scrambling to raise money, because you're gonna get crunched on valuations. You're going to do it at the worst possible time, and at the end of the day, you want as much equity, both from a personal perspective. I'm the sole shareholder of the parent company at the moment, but also you want as much equity to bring partners on as possible, right? Like the way to really grow and incentivize material partners is always going to be through equity. So we're in a really good position from a treasury standpoint. We don't need to raise capital from any VCs. The only point of which I would do that is where we either are undertaking obviously a highly accretive move in which is going to cause a lot of cash burn, or we're bringing on a partner of which is going to materially increase the overall value of the brand. So at this stage, we're not, like, there's been a lot of interest, which is very nice, and it's a good feeling to have. But at this stage, we're not raising. We understand that the opportunity is there, but we're not. And the treasury allows us to do everything that we want to do to try and get us to the point that where we have multiple revenue streams, where we're not reliant upon just the transactional movement of our assets. Because quite frankly, like, our goal as a brand is that people don't want to sell the asset, right? Because they're getting so much value, and the only way to do that is to create several other revenue streams. If businesses are relying upon the only thing that they're surviving by is by people wanting to sell their asset, I think they've got it all mixed up in terms of a long-term view. It's such a short-term game when you're completely remunerated from people wanting to sell your asset. So from our perspective, our whole business plan is around assuming that one day, for a good reason, let me make it clear, I don't think zero royalties are the way forward. But I also think that it should be assumed that that revenue stream is should be one of the smallest in the business if you're taking a long-term view of what you're trying to build.
Well, wonderful. No, it's always good to hear that founders like yourself are taking care of the treasury and obviously not raising, not rushing right now to raise capital, especially as you mentioned, is not probably the best time in terms of like valuation, in terms of like keeping your your equity and your company fully intact. So I guess you mentioned another point that is very important is there's many ways to grow even in a bear market. And I think one of them is powerful collaborations. And it seems like you guys have been working with a couple of very popular and famous projects. I don't know how much you can talk about it, but we've seen a couple of posts about Dead Fellas and maybe Moonbirds as well. Is that right? Can you elaborate more about it?
Yeah, well, that sort of runs on from what I was saying before around who you speak to and burning bridges, right? Like the relationships that we build, like they're just so important, and that's part of the reason that I've continued these Sinful Saturdays and trying to bring on as many people and founders as I can, because it opens the conversations to other opportunities that they've received, and because of it, we have now received other opportunities with Web2 companies, etc., etc. So, and I believe we have a possible announcement coming out later today as well, around another collaboration that we're doing within the space. So, all this sort of stuff it takes time, because it takes time to build that trust. And founders, rightly so, are completely, we're sketchy people, because you don't know who's trying to take you for a ride. There's a lot of money flowing around, and security is of the utmost importance, right? And reputation as well. So it takes a lot of time, but having these frank conversations on Spaces has been really beneficial, and having those conversations with founders has been really helpful, and people that listen to the likes of Betty, and I'm really looking forward to speaking with Luca as well, who's the not necessarily, he's not the founder of Pudgy Penguins, but he is now the owner, and his story is really good, and quite frankly, I spent an hour talking to him, and he, in my opinion, is one of the most switched on founders in the space. I don't know how much people have actually got to hear him, because I was never involved the whole way through in Pudgy Penguins until speaking with him. And he shares a lot of the vision that I have for Quirkies in a more children's audience orientated way with Pudgies, and it really sounds exciting with a lot of the stuff that he's doing, and these sort of relationships that you build. It's going to be so important, because there's one thing that I don't know if FinTech's still in the audience, but the way that he said it was really important. Like NFTs, Web3, it's not like a sporting team where you can only support one and there's going to be a winner and a loser. The fact is, it's the complete opposite. If founders are actually working together to bring more and more corporates and large Web2 businesses into the space, where we're working with legitimate founders, legitimate teams who are competent, and we feel that we can easily refer them if it's not suitable for us, or if they're looking to partner with more than one. Like, that's going to be net positive for the whole space. So that's really part of the reason that I'm doing these, because I don't like giving up my Sundays. Let me tell you right now. But I think it's so important to have these conversations with other founders, and just keep us front of mind. Like one of the most important things when I was building my business from a financial perspective, and looking to get clients and raise money for companies, was just making sure that you're always in front of people, always making the phone calls, always saying, if you need anything, I'm the person that you need to call. And I don't think Web3 should be any different, because I'm trying to be in the front of, as many people that I think are influential in the space that are having those same conversations that I'm trying to have. So if there's ever a requirement to go, well, we can't do it, but I know Sintribus can, you want to be that person.
Wonderful. I love it. And I couldn't agree more with the fact that you mentioned that, at the end of the day is networking and partnering with the right people and obviously not burning bridges, to really drive the space forward. So before we move on, I have a couple of more questions for you, but I want to make sure that everyone in the audience, knows that they're welcome to join the stage, ask any questions for anyone in the audience. the panel, or even Sin. So if you wanted to ask any questions, or you want to talk about anything related to Quirkies, please, now is the time to do so. Request to speak. But as we move on, I wanted to touch upon, I guess, on the team. You mentioned partnerships. We spoke a little bit about the partnerships that you guys have in mind, and some news are gonna come out of this later today, as per your discussed. But I guess the next question I had, and it's related to one of the posts that you recently did, is seems like you're also growing your team. One of them being a new advisory board member, Steve Brzezinski. Hopefully, I'm spelling that right. What is the strength of bringing someone like him to the team, and how does this take Quirkies to the next level?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's something that we've been working very hard on behind the scenes, and that is bringing on people that are going to provide us material value, and also we can provide value to them. So by creating an advisory board, what we're able to do, and this is very in line with what I was just saying around keeping front of mind, right? So Steve, who is the founder of Top Draw, he's working with. Well, hang on, I need to be careful because I'm under NDA on a few things he's working on. So he's worked with Adidas, he's worked with Puma, he's worked with Bored Apes, etc., etc. And it's imperative for a brand like us that were like I had to beg, steal, and borrow to get in front of him initially when we just minted out. And again, I was emailing because they were working with Bored Apes, right? So they were hardly interested in talking into Quirkies that at the time were like 0.05, doing a bit of volume, but there wasn't a lot of interest. And I spoke to him. I got on the phone, got on video call, said, look, I want to give you my background. I want to tell you what I do for a living. I want to tell you what I want to do with this brand, and where it's going to take both of our brands. And I had to sort of explain why I thought we were going to provide value to him. And to be fair, he backed me on it. We did our first drop to our community, and it was behind Bored Apes, and I think only World of Women. We were the third most successful, and still are the third most successful drop that they've had. Which, given we're a 5,000 unit project at the time, and we're brand new, was really big. And I think from then he saw that we're actually really trying to build something, and he's helping us with a lot of the streetwear apparel brand side of things. And it was important to us to recognize the amount of assistance that Top Drawer are giving us, and also to reward that from a perspective of saying, okay, well, this is our partner, we're working with him, but also making sure that all his partners know that he's got a direct line to us. So if Adidas, for example, go, well, hang on a second, we need to work with someone. Steve, who are we working with? Well, by the way, I'm on the advisory board for the Quirkies. So that is the thought process behind it. And again, obviously, a board consists of several people, and that same thought process relates to every single person that we announce and that we bring on, where we want to be able to provide value to that person and the companies that they work with, work on, and the business that they provide. And also, we feel that there will be a time in the future where their expertise, their connections will be mutually beneficial to our community and our holders as well. And I think any team that are looking to do it alone are just not they're just not going to be able to grow quick enough, because this space requires us to grow at a materially faster rate than Web 2, where you can sort of find your feet, you can make mistakes, where this, like, if you're making mistakes too often, you're going to lose momentum. And that's why we need to have everyone on board, and as much expertise as we can possibly gain. And quite frankly, a lot of people are willing to join the space, right? Like, people want to be a part of something that is new and be on the forefront, and we're offering that opportunity as much as they're helping us.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's wonderful to see, experts in Web 2, and especially around, branding, I think definitely it's a very synergistic move from your end, and we definitely expect to see wonderful things coming from Steve and his expertise. I wanted to ask you one question. I don't know how related this is to what we were just discussing, but we're already impressed with the 3D version avatars of the Quirkies. I guess walking down the runway, is that I don't know how much you can answer. Is that going to be related to merge, or is it going to be metaverse play? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, that look, it's not. Look, there's going. I'll say this. There's going to be more of that coming out, which will actually tell its own story. We as we said in the first post, we do want to take people on a journey, and that there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes of how that ties back into our streetwear brand and how we want to do that differently than what other people in Web 2 are doing, right? So we're a Web 3 business. We don't forget that. So we want to make sure that we, for example, we launch things differently. We provide experiences differently for those people that are both our holders in our NFTs and our Web 3 business, and also those that are part of people that we're promoting to, we're marketing to from a Web 2 perspective, and we want avenues that we can bring where we can promote both and simultaneously try and bridge the gap between being a Web 2 holder as a a brand supporter, and also as a Web 3 NFT holder. So yeah, look, there's going to be a journey. There's going to be a story told out of those, and there will be another one coming early next week. We've got them all lined up, and keep an eye out. I can't go into more detail than that, but it probably gives a little bit more than I was hoping to. But it's important for us to try and remember, because it's so easy. Like, it would be so easy for us just to spend a heap of money marketing our Web 2 business, right? And just build it simultaneously, but not in any really synergistic way to our Web 3 business. I think that would lose a huge opportunity. I think we have an opportunity here to be like the true first Web 3 purely streetwear apparel brand, and we need to do that remembering our roots, that is Web 3. So we're trying our best to do that in a meaningful way.
Wonderful. We're super excited to see where that goes. I guess I have one more question. It's very open. I know that you can probably just speak in a limited amount of topics regarding what's coming in the future, but just a little hint will do. Can you give us just a piece of alpha, anything that has not been announced yet, that just the audience here can learn about today?
Yeah, no, for sure. So, like, I've been harping on it for quite some time, and that's around our tiers. And so our tiers are, we're obviously the highest being the alpha tier. So I came out and said that in the background, we'd created the platform where we can not only, well, we can at any given instant now tell exactly who is in which tier at any given time, and also not replicate those tiers. So we can click a button, we can pull all the data out, and we can say, well, this person has 20 alpha sets. We don't replicate those down into the lower ranks. So if you've got 50 alphas, you haven't automatically got 50 omegas as well, which is really important for the reward structure that we're building out. And we're working on and are getting close to our first deliverable on that, where alpha holders will be rewarded only, and that is driven into everything that we're doing going forward. So we are as I said, we're making a collaborative announcement later today, and the whole premise of that and the way that it's going to be structured is completely aligned to our tiered membership. So for those that have been holding strong with alpha tier, then there's going to be continued rewards. And I was on the phone to Puppy about this the other day, and I said, at the end of the day, we're not interested in, and this is part of the post that I made yesterday where I was having a crack at people wanting to flip in 3 days' time, is that, like, we're building this to consistently reward people for the next 2 years, the next 5 years, irrespective of the market. and that takes time to structure, right? It really does, because if you want to do it in a way that you think is sustainable long term, we have to have actually a plan to who we're going to partner with at what point in time and how we're going to be able to push it sustainably. So yeah, as I said, we've built out that function now, which allows us to really reward those users that are holding, and importantly, we've also been able to do it in a way that we can calculate the length of time, which I think is something that without staking is not really looked at. No one's really looking at how long someone's held an item, and I think it's a metric that it needs to be used, right? If you don't want to have a staking coin where the only way of tracking it is, some random community coin that struggles to have value, a great way of doing it is calculating the length of time that someone's held, and that's something that we'll be implementing in the future as well.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard from the man himself. If you have a Quirkies, or if you have it listed, make sure you delist it right now, or you're gonna be missing out on great stuff. I wanted to bring on to stage a bird guy. I don't know if you have any questions for Sin or anyone else, but after we'll try to bring on someone else in the stage. Anyone that wants to provide any feedback or questions for the founder. And then we're gonna be giving away the amazing Quirkling that is pinned to the top. So, but first of all, want to give it to Bird Guy. How are you doing today?
Hi, how's it going, Loco?
It's going good, man. Do you have any questions for Sin or anyone in the
Yes, it's actually for Sin also. It's really great to hear you speak and learned a lot. And I really liked from what you mentioned about Web3 when you had your conversation with the founder of Pudgy Penguins, that it's the best way forward is when if we're able to work together, and that's where it's a win-win for everyone. And to be honest, that's one of the main reasons why I've actually joined in Web3 earlier on this year. And I've fallen in love with this space for that main reason, that, there's plenty to go around to everybody. So the more we share, the more we can all grow. And my question for you was that, I've seen on your Twitter, there is the Quirklings OG and Quirklings. Can you just explain to me what the difference for those two collections are? If I am to probably hopefully buy in soon, what would be more beneficial, or how does it work?
That's a really good question, actually. And I think coming into the ecosystem new, like that's probably a question that gets asked the most. And the reason so the tiers that I just spoke about, so we have a 4-tiered system within Quirksville, the highest being alpha tier, and the story behind that is I bought an ape very early enough that I also received my matching board kennel club, and there was really no reward for keeping that matching set together thus far. Maybe there will be. I hope there is, because I'm still holding them together. And that's something that I wanted to build throughout Quirkies. So the highest tier within Quirksville is owning a Quirky, an OG Quirky, and then also owning in the same wallet the matching mint number Quirkling. So that then provides you the highest tier membership within Quirkies. It then goes the next one below that, which is a Quirky and an unmatching Quirkling. It then goes a Quirky and then a Quirkling. So all will certainly retain value, but in terms of the rewards, in terms of the airdrops that we provide, in terms of the claiming, in terms of the partnerships, in terms of the particular merch and the holder merch that we will do it alongside our streetwear brand, where we look to, whether it's maybe partner with a well-known Web2 brand in terms of launching a seasonal drop for our holders. That's the way that value proposition will be provided down that 4-tier system. So the highest is always going to be your matching set, which creates volume as well. There is a side part of that where people want to then trade and make sure that they can come into the ecosystem with an OG and a Quirkling. So that's the key difference between the two. It's just being able to mix and match to try and get which tier of membership you're looking to attain within Quirksville. And
Thank you.
I should mention as well that from a law perspective, you know, Quirkies at this stage are the sole inhabitants of Quirksville, and then Quirklings were coming to protect them from something that's coming, which is currently being fleshed out in our comic book series as well. But certainly from a utility perspective, as I said, with the tier membership.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Makes a lot of very clear for me, and I'm very much excited to come on board. Hopefully, very soon.
Wonderful. Well, good to see that there's new members joining the Quirk family. I brought into stage Action Jax. He's a well-known Quirky holder, so I know you probably have a couple of questions, at least for Sin. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you, for Loco. Beard Guy, and if you're interested, just hit me up and I will help you out in whatever way I can to find you a great Quirkling. As far as that goes, Sin, I know you and I still need to contact on a phone call sometime in the future, but I am actively pursuing other areas for investors to try and show them the Quirkies line of product. I have spoken with FG on that one as well, and I just want to say thank you to that. And as far as the tier system goes, I understand it pretty well. Are there additional benefits in the future that you're looking for alpha tiers and down the line?
Yeah, look, the alpha tier has to be the most rewarded tier, right? Like, I mean, it's the hardest tier to attain, and therefore there will be situations where it will only be alpha tier rewarded. So we want to make sure that we reward everyone over time. But I mean, from my perspective, I think the hardest thing for people to do would be, in a bear market, receive an airdrop, which at a point in time was worth 0.4 at a floor at some point in time. So it's material amount of money. They've held that to retain that set. So, you know, we want to be able to provide value to alpha tier members. And like that, as I said, every partnership that I'm doing, every conversation that I have, in terms of whether it's a corporate partnership, whether it's a Web3 partnership, whether it's a Web2 partnership, that's the first thing that I explain to who I'm speaking to is these are the tiers that we have, and therefore this is how we need to structure any rewards, any drops, any claims that we then work on. So alpha will always be our number one priority in terms of that tier system, obviously, because it makes sense that it's going to be in time the rarest. And you know, from a team perspective, we've got several things coming that we're working on to be able to just even if it's not a direct line, we just want to make sure that we're offering the opportunity for anything that we do to alpha first. So that's always going to be the case because, as I said, it's one of the things that I thought Yuga, about the only thing I thought Yuga could probably have done better is that, you know, there was a matching set there, then why not reward it? And it's something that we want to make sure we focus on.
Well, cool. I think that probably answered his question. If there's no one else that has any questions for Sin, obviously you can always follow up with him probably on Discord or DMs. But I wanted to, take it over and give the mic to my co-host Tanksy to select the winner. Okay, I think we have JPEG Pappy. What's going on, man?
Hey, what's up, guys? For Loco, thanks, bro. I had a phone call in between, and I wasn't sure if I'd be able to jump back on, but I was, and I got to hear probably 90% of the question and answer with you and Sin. And first off, I just wanted to thank. I don't know if Chilla is still here. It looks like he might have had to jump off, unless he's on the main account. I'm not sure, but I just wanted to thank you and him first and foremost. You guys have been and just Bridge 3 Labs in general has been such an amazing colleague, just an amazing pillar, and you guys have just brought such a value to Quirkies since really the very, very, very beginning. And it just doesn't go unnoticed, honestly. I mean, hearing Sin speak is a big reason why, and I just posted and I pegged it up top. It's a big reason why I posted that. I firmly believe, and I think I've invested at this moment, probably my bag is worth maybe 200 ETH. And I think I've probably invested about that, maybe more, into the project. And I still firmly believe that that's probably the best upside that I have, right? Not sitting here giving financial advice. It's just my personal conviction. Getting a chance to, hey, Sin, let's jump on a call. Let's catch up. And, he still doesn't tell me everything. I think people think I know all the alpha. I don't. But we do have a great friendship. I've always shown him respect, and he's always shown it to me. And, just the way that his brain works, I throw him ideas, and sometimes he's like, Poppy, that's brilliant. And other times he's like, well, this is why that might not be a good idea. And I'm like, oh, shit, you're smart, man. Like, he thinks of things from a couple different angles, which is a skill that not everybody has. And in this space, you can be pushed around and bullied around by your holders, um, quite significantly if you're not sure what to do. And eventually, your holders run the project, and it's really not a good place to be as a founder when you have an initial vision. So, you guys asked some really good questions that just got a chance to extract, um, you know, the future of the project, the vision, his roots, and the real intention. And I want to get my hands on this recording. I was thinking maybe to have it have it transcribed, or maybe just have it clipped and put it on YouTube, like somewhere easy, because this would be the best Q&A that I've seen. You guys asked him challenging questions, and he really, in my opinion, nailed each one. And I would use this to onboard new people into the project all day, every day. And so hats off to you guys, for setting this up. But not only just setting it up, look, a lot of people have farmed Quirky's engagement since the very beginning, which is pretty funny, uh, whether it's actual engagement farming or just like people jumping in, grabbing one to get more followers, or, hey, let's do a collab spaces, and they don't even buy anything. We've built a really good community. We have a good infrastructure of like diamond hand chats and raider chats, and the Discord is still really solid. And we have a majority of our very good holders, um, contained into just very specific channels. So, we can, uh, you know, provide a lot of social media engagement, and, you know, we've helped a lot of projects get off the ground, because that's something from the community standpoint that Ash, myself, Lajama, Doom, and many others who have really been building this since the beginning. That's something that we believe in, is collaborating, right? And not just making it about us, but, really making it about elevating the space. Because if all these projects around us die, people will leave NFTs, and then it doesn't help us at all, right? It doesn't help any project to see another project die, right? So our philosophy from the very, 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 very beginning has been to collaborate, and I think that's something that you guys have done. That's why this space was something that I was just really fired up about. And I've been in the trading and technical analysis arena for 7 years, and so like 2 Degrees and Chilla wrote, to hear you guys analyze, whether it's the actual macro environment, or the NFT macro. It was good. I think it went over some people's heads. It's big talk, and it's also scary, right? When you talk about inflation and interest rates and the bond market spiraling. And I think while we were on the call, something happened out of London, and there's a lot of weird stuff going on, and I still don't think NFTs are properly classified. I think the IRS, I think for Loco, you were the one who gave that update. I think the IRS is wrongly taxing NFTs. So it's good to hear that they're making some segue. And I actually spoke to my accountant 2 days ago, and he said, the way that some people are taxing themselves on NFTs is actually wrong. as well, and he told me, don't panic, because it's more about the conversion than it is about the transaction. So I think that there's still a lot of evolution in the space, but you guys brought a lot of value, and I just wanted to say thank you and express gratitude for all, not just today, but your support between everybody in Bridge 3. You guys have like one of the best bags of Quirkies, and you've continued to accumulate and support the project and do giveaways, and just bring actual value instead of just sitting around and bitching and waiting for the project to do something for you. So I appreciate it a lot. Thank you guys for the exposure, and for you know continuing to show us that love. Sin, great work, man. Just tremendous amount of respect. The way you handle yourself, and I'm excited for what's gonna happen tonight for sure. It sounds exciting. So, yeah, appreciate you guys. Do the giveaway now. I'm done.
Thanks, Papi. I appreciate the kind words. We'll definitely get this recording, and we can work with you and the Crickets team to have it on our YouTube. I think that definitely be helpful for many people outside and actually within the Crickets community to hear directly from Sin and everything we discussed. As for the nice words, I appreciate it. We definitely have been supporting many projects, but to be fairly honest, there's two projects that and you can probably see across our wallets we support 100%, and obviously one of them is Yuga Labs, as you can see in our profile pictures, but the second one is the Quirkies, and you can probably see across our probably 5 or 6 different wallets. I believe we are the top fifth shareholder, and I know you are the top one or two, so we kind of like follow you closely on that step. But we definitely believe in the vision. We believe in the team and in Sin. So that's why we wanted to kind of like have these spaces, because I think it was long overdue that we finally got to meet, in both communities were able to synchronize and chat about it. So
Yeah, no, I
so
agree, and I mean, like, I think we share that one strong sentiment that my biggest bag is Yuga. I mean, depending on the evaluation of the Trippy, you could argue that my Yuga stuff is close to 1,000 ETH even now. Maybe a little bit less, but it's a big bag. And then after that is Quirkies, and there's obviously other good projects, but I love that you guys see that same vision, because I truly believe that when it's all said and done, these are two projects that got it down pat. Sin mentioned another one that's really good, which is Pudgy Penguins. Chimpers is great. So there's a couple projects that are really standing out and just turning heads and building teams. So great to hear that. And again, you guys are a major piece of this, and I hope we can figure out something more official, maybe more of an official partnership. I'm going to plant that seed now, and maybe there's something we can do from either a community standpoint or like an actual project standpoint, to bring all these beautiful brains together. So appreciate you guys big time.
likewise, no, definitely, we should definitely plan something up soon, and that's part of what we're building as well within the venture lab. We want to connect directly with founders that have a huge support from the community. I think that's the number one asset within the space. So let's definitely plan that up. I wanted to give, before I get we make the giveaway for the Quirkling. I believe is the number 859. The mic to King Corey. I know you came into the stage. Do you want to provide anything or ask any questions?
Hey, how's it going, guys? Yeah, I just wanted to add that Quirkies seems like a very good community. I know Bridge 3 Labs is, for a fact. Anybody out there in the audience right there that hasn't joined up yet, go hop on OpenSea and get yourself a pass. They're on a discount right now. And another thing, like the Discord, you guys got a new engage to earn thing going on, which I'm liking. I got to catch Beard Guy though. He's kicking my ass. But that's it. Go buy a Bridge 3 Labs pass.
Appreciate the love, man, and you know that you're one of the the earlier and supporters of our community, and even though we barely do any promotion, we are proud to have members like yourself and Bird Guy, who support us on a daily basis. So we're here for the long term. We share that the same vision and path with the Quirkies. We're here to stay, and so whatever comes, we know the community is behind us. But anyways, I wanted to pass on the mic to my co-host Danksy. Please give it away. Everyone is wanting to see who won the Quirkling. I know you've been looking at the audience and who has been on the spaces since the beginning. So why don't you announce it?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for everyone speaking today. JPEG Poppy, great meeting you in New York. The winner today for the Quirklings is you_ETH. You message this account, we'll send you the Quirkling ASAP. So thank you all for coming. For Loco, close it out.
At first you said it was me. I was like, no, dude, don't do that. You're like thank you, Poppy. The winner is you. I'm like, ah, shit. No,
Yeah. Maybe you should announce the actual Twitter handle. I think it was
no, that is his. It's what?
You-
Yeah, it's you. It's you.
_ETH. He knows who he is. He'll be happy to DM
He's an
me.
amazing work. We did a great trade last night, so that's a phenomenal member of the community.
Okay, wonderful. Well, congratulations. Thanks for joining us, and everyone in the audience. Special thanks to Sin. Thanks for making it up so early and being so kind to respond to all our questions. We hope to connect very soon, and us, obviously, as we say, we wish you the best in your endeavors, and we'll be alongside you for whatever is to come. So thank you, everyone, and see you next week.
See you guys. Thanks for coming.